A couple of weeks back, the fine folks at the Nth Level reached out to me to see if I would give their new Skirmish game a spin. It sounded intriguing, so I accepted. This is a sponsored video because although no money changed hands, they did send me a complimentary copy of Primordial Steel. That said, you lot are still getting my unfiltered opinion on it, so buckle up. The game is set in an alternate world where Greek, Roman and Egyptian-like states coexist with monsters. Kinda like the world of Conan, but the monsters are more common here, and they get wrangled to serve in battle. So we get hoplites and minotaurs, and Romans and werewolves and that kind of thing. There is some lore and backstory that I didn't read as I'm not into fluff and wargaming, but the general premise is badass. To playtest, I set up one of the several scenarios from the book, Light the Beacons. I had the Swamp Tribes defending and the Lupine Empire attacking. The defenders tried to light the beacons, and the attackers were trying to extinguish them. The game is miniature agnostic and uses inches for measurement, but I just used tokens and downscaled everything to centimeters for my convenience. Creating an army list is through a point-buy system, though the number of people you can take is limited by the ability of your heroes. For example, the Centurion has 5 command points, which means he can bring 5 more units to battle with him. There are some additional equipment options that cost points, but it's very straightforward, and anyone who's ever played a wargame should understand it easily. The factions have some good special rules, which give them a fair bit of character. In this game, the Swamp Tribes had the Bubbling Bog ability, which lets them place a piece of swamp terrain down after deployment. Some units in the army can interact with this in special ways. The activation system is something I really liked about this game. You take a token for each hero on each side, and you put them in a bag. Some scenarios also have a special token that also goes into the bag. In this case I used blue dice for the Empire, purple dice for the Swamp Tribes, and a yellow one for the scoring token. Once you draw a token, you can activate one hero from the side to which it belongs. I drew an Empire token, so I activated the Centurion. He has a command of 5 and a command radius of 8, so he can give orders to up to 5 friendly units within 8 of him. I had him move the Legionnaires up the hill to secure the unlit beacon. After completing your actions, you make a command roll. You roll a number of dice equal to your hero's command score, less the number of fatigue and wound tokens on them. In this case he was still fresh and unwounded, so that's 5 dice. If at least one of them comes up as a 5, the command token goes back into the bag, and the commander takes a fatigue token. Otherwise the command token is put aside until the end of the turn. Then you draw another token, and whoever's color comes up activates. You can assign tokens to a commander any number of times, but as they accumulate fatigue it becomes easier for you to lose the token. If the scoring token comes up, then the scenario special rules come into play. For Light the Beacons, the defender gets 1 victory point for each beacon with 3 fire tokens on it, and the attacker gets 1 victory point for each beacon with none. When one side reaches 6, the game is over. Unlike the command tokens, the scoring token is set aside after it is drawn, so it will only come up once per turn. Once the bag is empty, the turn ends. The fatigue tokens are reset and the bag is refilled. Now, the reason that I like this system is that it's very dynamic and has a nice back and forth flow. Allowing units to activate multiple times in a turn lets you set up some more complex strategies, and a single turn can be very eventful. The fact that the score is counted at a random point in the turn also adds a bit of pressure. The way combat is handled is very intuitive. All your troops have an attack value. You roll that many dice, and if the result is equal to or larger than your target's first defense value, you score a hit. If you roll higher than your target's second defense value, you score a critical hit, which counts double and triggers special rules for some units. If you have an advantage, for example you're charging or you spend an action to aim, you get to upscale your dice. Say goblins normally use 4-sided dice to shoot. If they aim, they use 6-sided dice. Similarly, Legionnaires usually attack with 6-sided dice in melee. If they charge, they use 8-sided dice. Magic is also handled in the same way, and each faction's caster have some way of upscaling their dice. For example, the Swamp Hag gets to upscale if she's standing in the Bubbling Bog. It's a simple solid mechanic which applies to everything in the game, which is really neat. One of the orders you can give your troops is the Prepare order, which lets them wait for an enemy to get in range. If an enemy finishes a move within range of a prepared unit, they can take a shot at them or try to attack them in melee. It works a lot like Overwatch in the old Warhammer 40k rules, and I think every game should have it. In terms of rules, I have nothing to complain about. It's a great system which plays well. I would have loved to have some rules for morale, as it's kind of weird to have a disheveled goblin fearlessly face down a mastodon, but that's nice to have rather than a deal breaker. The only complaints I do have are about the presentation. I have gone on record before saying that I don't buy gaming material for the grammar, but there are a few mistakes in the text that make some of the examples harder to read. It's nothing you wouldn't understand if you sit down and read it properly, but I think cleaning this up would be a cheap win for the Nth Level, as it would make it a lot more polished. Some of the rules are a bit open, and that's kind of a good sign, as that means that they were designed and tested by reasonable people, but I can see some potential for abuse. For example, in the Light the Beacon scenario, an unit can light and put out fires, including wolves. Again, not a major problem unless you know people in your gaming group who would be ridiculous about that. With the exception of the logo, which is 500% metal, I'm not a big fan of the art in the rulebook, which seems to be AI generated. Even without going into the ethics of AI art, it doesn't have a lot of character, and I think even some simpler sketches and drawings or photos of a game in progress would define the feel of the game a lot better. Other than that, the layout could be tightened up in a few places, and a quick play sheet would be really useful. That said, I really didn't find much fault with the game itself. I don't think this would be the first game I recommend to an absolute beginner, but if you have a few games under your belt or someone to help you get started, Primordial Steel is a fantastic game to pick up. But don't just take my word for it. You can get the starter rules for free from the End Circle on their site, and the link is in the description below. So you can give it a spin yourself and let me know what you think. I'm off to get a few more games in myself. Bye!